people, what's happening? Welcome back to United View. Welcome back to the channel. Smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Today we've got a very special guest. We've been trying to make this happen for a hot minute. Mr. Jamie Jackson from The Guardian. How are you doing, Jay?
I'm very good, Flex. How are you, sir?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Just following, trying to follow this team of ours. Just trying to work out what's going to happen. But yeah, listen, no, I'm good, and I'm much better for seeing you come through the channel. We really appreciate it. I know, especially this morning, mate. That phone could go any moment.
Oh, what's going on this morning?
Yeah, exactly. What's happening? Let's get straight into it, Jay.
Yeah.
Jamie, where are you at with what's going on? How you understand it? This meeting is happening as at the time of recording. Sir Jim's in there, apparently he's got the final say, but he's going to take, advice off the rest, Omar Barada, etc., Dan Ashworth. How do you understand the situation to be today?
Yeah, well, I think it's going on possibly or probably in his offices, which are next to Harrods in central London. I mean, it might not be, but, that tends to be where Sir Jim has these sort of high-powered meetings, not just about United, but, all parts of his business. I mean, with regard to whether they're going to get rid of him, I've got to say, these comments he made last week to the BBC, Sir Jim, sort of basically not publicly backing him, saying he was a good coach. Now, on the one hand, he may mean what he said, that, look, it's up to the Barada, the chief executive you mentioned, Dan Ashworth, sporting director. Jason Wilcox will be there, technical director, who's sort of more in, obviously, just the first team, yes. It's up to them to make a decision. But I get the feeling that he wants him to go. And if, this is Sir Jim, and if so, are they really going to turn around and stick their necks out? This is Barada and Ashworth primarily, and say, you know what, Sir Jim, we respect your view, but we actually think X, Y, Z. Listen, maybe that's why he's employed them, because they are strong enough to sort of stand up at this moment. But I suppose the reason, I can see it both ways as usual. The reason why I think they might not do that is because look at the team where it is, sadly. It's just over 2 years into his tenure. It's his third season. And, down in 14th, worst start to the sort of Premier League, I believe it is, etc., etc. But then on the other hand, they spent £200 million on players for him this summer. No Luke Shaw. Hoyland's only started 2. Yoro sadly got injured in the game. I think we were both at in LA in the opening half there against Arsenal. It is only 7 games into the league. You are still only 6 points from the top 4. So I can then see it that way. 5
points towards relegation.
I know. I'm trying to be positive for your viewers and for yourself, because I know you're obviously a massive fan.
Oh, they're negative, mate. We're done. We're done.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the other thing is in the story I did this morning on the back of the Guardian was basically Van Nistelrooy would be their sort of go-to if they need a quick, if they need a deputy, a caretaker. Because why I'm mentioning that is, so I understand it certainly of yesterday, it might have changed because football's a fast-moving business. Tuchel had not been approached, certainly officially, for example, to be sounded out. But I did get the impression, speaking to people in and around Tuchel, that he wouldn't necessarily be against it. He wanted a break. What we're now October, so he's had a bit of a break. Whether it'd be long enough, not too sure. But what I'm saying is maybe they feel if they do get rid of Ten Hag, we've got 10 days, let's say, international break. They'd have time to get a permanent manager in, or Van Nistelrooy until that, if it takes longer.
A couple of games, yeah.
So I am leaning more towards all over the weekend. I was thinking, well, they've had 2 draws. I was at the Porto game, obviously. Yeah. The Sunday game was obviously at Villa. I was thinking, no, I don't think they're going to get rid of him. But now I'm starting to lean the other way. But this meeting is, apparently started first thing this morning. Listen, we might not hear anything at all either way for a bit today. But, knowing our industry, knowing football, the village it is, I think word will start to emerge somehow. I'm talking about officially, we might not hear anything from the club. On the other hand, it might just be a statement. Thank you very much, Eric. Off you go.
Imagine that.
He keeps on saying, we know where we are at the project. It's about young players.
Do you believe him? Because sometimes, Eric, the one thing you're really famous for, Jay, is, the no-nonsense questions. Just saying it as it is quite refreshing, actually. And you're never afraid to sort of, I don't want to say push the buttons, but ask the tough questions. So when he sort of pushes back and says, well, no, I've got back in, or no, we will win trophies and it's that. Do you think that's self-preservation and siege mentality, or do you think, no, it's because he does have the backing from the people above?
My reading of it is that he genuinely believes that when he says it. So, he thinks because of the discussions And, you know, what happened in the summer, they had a bit of a beauty parade, you know, looking at people like Tuchel, etc. Then came back to him, gave an extra year, talked about the project. He firmly believes. But I think he might have been a little bit naive in that because, and I'm surprised I'm saying that, but it's only on the evidence of how he's, you know, he's going about this because he's a football man. He, you know, he's at Ajax, obviously. It's a top club in Netherlands. He should know how football works. But I just feel like you never know in this game, you know, football. So even if the last time, say he spoke to him after at Villa Park, but after the game at Villa Park, you know, and the feeling he got was that it was great from them all. Not great, but, you know, they had the backing. But I didn't mean to say that that's actually what's going on. That's what I'm sort of, you know, I'm interested to see, I think as we all are, what goes on today. And only a club the size, probably the only club, maybe apart from Real Madrid in the world, the magnitude of Manchester United, could we have this situation where, with the greatest respect, it's almost like a little bit of a spectacle. It's almost like a bit of entertainment today, isn't it? Like what's going to happen? You know, I don't mean that in a callous way, but, you know, we're all sort of focused on this because United
is national break, and it's like, well, who's going to go? Who's going to?
Yeah, it's the Manchester United manager. You don't get a bigger sort of job in football in this country, and we're all fascinated. You know, me and my trade. You know, you beat yourself. Whoever it is, even if you don't like football, this is of interest because of the stakes and the sort of prestige of the club. I mean, I have to say, I do think he one of his biggest assets, if not the biggest assets, he's a cool customer. So we're talking about this. You know, he feels he has the backing, and I think he's gone on holiday. You know, that's actually got a very good prerequisite to be Manchester United manager. I still think, and maybe a lot of people think I'm naive, I'm not saying this will happen at all, but because sport is so crazy sometimes, and you have some ridiculous things, basically why we all love it, you know, football being obviously probably one of the greatest sports. You just never know about a fairy tale. I'm not saying necessarily he could do it, but part of me, the romantic in me, wants him almost to turn it around just because it'd be an amazing story.
Mate, 100%. That would be, this would be one of the biggest comebacks of all time.
Yeah. And so, you know, maybe that will happen, but it's a little bit, you know, how soon is now? You just feel like, when is the progress going to, you know, I know it, exactly. You know, this is the issue with it really. You know, I could go through the goal that 20 scored at Old Trafford to equalise when they ran through which was kind of almost like the Mickey van der Ven opener. Just run, but again, is that the manager's fault? I suppose he has to take quite a large amount of responsibility. But you've got football players out there, and so I come to the conclusion that the actual squad is still a little bit average and middling. You know, to be able to do really what Manchester United need, which is to be up there or certainly be, you know, making progress.
And then with that one, then, because I've been talking about this on the channel, sort of saying, well, let's dissect how good our team actually is. But then that's even more worrying then, because 600 million spent, or over 600 million spent under his stewardship, and him bringing in players that is played under, him bringing in players that have played in the Eredivisie, him bringing in Dutch players, him bringing in now his new backroom staff, him not having any injuries anymore. What more do you want, Eric? What more do you want? Like, we've literally just had to see him invest in our future in Martinez and De Ligt, and him go, I need to go to Evans and Maguire, mate. Like, that doesn't look good. I've brought in Mazraoui, who knows my style of play. I've brought in Onana, who knows my style of play. I've co-signed Mason Mount, number 7, injured, terrible. I've backed Bruno with a new contract, and now he's looking out of sorts. Rashford all last year, terrible. Like, there's so much to Ugate's been brought in. We've chased him all summer. You've had a look at him against Barnsley and Southampton, respectively, and then Spurs, and gone, oh, no. Christian Eriksen, mate, we thought he'd be out the door in the summer. He's playing more games than anyone.
You know, I mean, you characterise it perfectly, Claire. I mean, you just ran through basically a whole litany and, you know, a whole list of, like, puzzling or you know, not good situations.
And I didn't even mention Anthony, who even he's...
Yeah. I mean... You put it another way around. What signings have worked, really? I mean, maybe Yoro, bless him, when he comes back from his injury.
Thank God he's not part of this shit.
Well, I know. I mean, you know, so I just, you know, it is, and this Ineos thing is interesting because they were supposed to be, well, they are the new broom, but they oversee this transfer, you know, this summer market, this summer window. And let's take Yoro apart, obviously, because he's injured, as I say. Yeah. But so far, they're all kind of started like they're duds. I don't want them to be duds, but, you know, Xerxes, I'm not sure. I mean, I can go through Ugarte. He's good enough to start against Spurs, and then we haven't seen him since. Okay, he's not integrated yet, but, you know, he's a top pro bid at PSG. He was in the Copa America team of the, you know,
running around like a lunatic for Uruguay every game.
Yeah, and you know, he's a top pro, in other words, or certainly an elite, you know, established top level. it's 5 weeks, 6 weeks into after he's signed, and he's not ready. Is there something going on there? I mean, it is a bit of a mess, really, to be honest.
Exactly, mate. And that's the thing where I wanted to ask you about how you think Ineos will perceive this, because Ineos, I think this is the first time they've got praised, rightly so, throughout the summer with the things they did. You know, waiting for Dan Ashworth, not being bullied, waiting for Bayern Munich to get Delit and Mazraoui for a snip for both of them, and not being bullied in the market, changing the perception of Man United. Fine, you get your props then. I feel like, and I can say this from the fan perspective, I feel like fans now are looking over, going, right, you told us strong leadership. So, Jim, you had a big manifesto saying you don't care about making money off of this, you care about winning. Now, by prolonging this inevitable sacking, in a lot of people's opinions, it looks like you're doing the same thing of old, just hanging around, waiting. But also, they have the self-preservation of they've backed him publicly, they've given him money, and they don't want to undo their work and show that they've made a mistake as well. So my question is how do you think Ineos will be seeing this? Do they need to show the fans that actually they can hold their hands up and be ruthless and say, we don't care, 7 games in, not good enough, see you later? Or do they need to show the fans that, no, we haven't made a wrong mistake and we do stick to our guns because we're strong leadership?
Yeah, I mean, this is the question. This is what today and the outcome of today will tell us, really. They could still make a case that it's only 7 games in. But, I mean, if Ashworth and Barada do their jobs in terms of analysing what's gone on, unless they
find one conclusion.
Well, I would say so, because look, you can lose games of football, but after 7 games, it's not that small a sample, right? You know what I mean? People will say 10 games, yeah.
Yeah, 10 games in all comps, because the 2 Europa League games have been terrible as well.
Yeah, so it's over 2/3 towards this sort of 10 game in the Premier League anyway. Well, you're right, actually. If you do the Europa League and Carabao Cup, it probably is 10 games now. So I don't think it's a bad sample size. And this is the whole thing, right? You can have injuries. I'm not talking about like last season when you have 66, but you can have a certain amount like he has had, but the team remains the same because you've got, a structure. That's the whole point about it. You look what Guardiola does. De Bruyne goes down, Foden comes in, and the team, I know Foden's a great player, don't get me wrong, but that's the whole point of the way. You're building all the time to be able to be in this position where it's almost seamless. It's what United did for many years under Ferguson. You win a title, two go out, 2 come in, and it's like the same team, maybe a little bit better because it's like a well-oiled machine. And one thing I would say, and this is not reflective in the start, is in the summer on the tour, did a story saying he doesn't necessarily have to finish top 4 to keep his job, but it has to show signs of massive improvement or
progression. Absolutely.
And we're not seeing that right at the moment. So I don't know. The one thing that is this thing that what you just said then about the humiliation of sort of like, not humiliation, but having to sack him and sort of. I'd like to think that Ratcliffe is ruthless enough and sort of like pragmatic enough to think, well, yeah, okay, it might look like that, but what I'm actually interested in is what you just said there, is winning, and in the long term, if he thinks this is the right decision, he'll get rid of Ten Hag. For the greater good in the long run. The only thing I would say is, who is it? Tuchel? If it is Tuchel, has he got the tools with that squad? I'm sure he can tighten them up.
Dismantle it again.
I mean, I can hear the weariness in your voice,
honestly. But then again, like you said, there is this thing that I mean, look, a lot of people in our community on United View, people in the comments and stuff, they have said, listen, Flex, no, not Tuchel. He's had it and he'll just spit his dummy out. And I'm for him. But I'm also for, I don't want to just say anybody but Ten Hag, because that just sounds silly. But I'm so open to, like, you don't know who, like, you have to unearth new gems like this. Trying to get the new names and the established names. You're not going to go and get Carlo Ancelotti. You're not going to go and get Pep or Klopp or, Arteta's never been a manager before. Maresca's managed about 60-odd games in his whole career from Leicester. Like, the next new manager, Arne Slot was Liverpool's 3rd choice, 4th choice. Vincent Kompany's Bayern Munich's 5th choice, because they kept sifting through to go, we have to change this. I know Liverpool was a bit different because Klopp decided to leave, but what I mean was they wanted Xabi Alonso. Right, we can't get him. Liverpool fans think, oh my God, what are we going to do? We got Ruben Amorim. Right, we'll get him out of Sporting. Didn't get him. Okay, well, Arne Slot, this Dutch guy. So, there's enough evidence out there with teams that have either changed their manager or doing something under a manager and seeing progression. And pound for pound, for me, with money spent, expectation, size of clubs, pound for pound, Man United for me are the worst team in the league. We expect Southampton to be down there.
Point,
You know, bless them. They've just come up. Leicester is supposed to be down there, etc., etc. Unai Emery came into Aston Villa, mate, when they was in the relegation zone, laughing stock under Gerrard, and they haven't looked back. They've been a better team than us since the day he walked in, all the way to now. You know, you look at what Fabian Herzl is doing at Brighton, like a continuation. Yes, they've not been amazing, but you know, they're capable of some stuff. And you know, when they played against us, there's a system, there's a style. You look at Marco Silva at Fulham, just keeping them competitive, keeping them with a game plan. You look at Iraola, mate, at Bournemouth, you can see what he's doing. Oliver Glasner. There's so many examples. For 35 minutes, Russell Martin, I tell you what, mate, he played us off the park up until that Cameron Archer missed penalty. So there's so many examples of other managers who don't have that much experience, don't have that much resources, haven't had as much time, all the things that we say as Man United fans to don't sack him. Well, there's other managers out there who will want the Man United job. I'm less concerned with, don't do this, don't become a sacking club. Guess what, mate? In 2 years' time, if it doesn't go right with this manager, he can go and all. Like, you just keep going till you get it right.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, as you're talking now, I'm thinking about the squad and some of the decisions he's sort of made. And, you know, Collier comes on. I know he had to, well, he felt he had to come on at halftime of that game.
Yeah.
Liverpool, wasn't it? But where's he been since? If you've, okay, he was on the receiving end of a loss, but if you've done a half against Liverpool, your greatest rivals, that's good experience, right? You've got it under your belt.
100%.
It's a little bit like what you said about the managers. Bring in, not just because, you don't have to bring in a player just because they're young and then their answer. They have to also have a bit about them. And he's got both. So I don't just think, just things like that. I mean, you are right. I mean, the thing about good managers is, Arteta's a really good example. You know, you just don't know where they're going to come from. Now, obviously, he was at Pep's side for a bit, but there's no guarantee you'd go in there and do that. What he's done,
everyone was calling him Waterboy, so he just got to put the cones out.
Yeah, and he's gone in there and sorted it out. So this is where, and you'd also like to think that Ineos have got a few candidates lined up who they know all about, because he basically interviewed about 500 in the summer.
Exactly, just the other day. Exactly.
But this is why it's interesting about are they actually going to pull the trigger? Because you'd think they'd have someone lined up and it would have come sooner than now. I mean, should they really? And you know, a lot of this is reporting. The club have never said this, obviously, but it seemed to be that after the Spurs game, it was all about Porto and Villa. But to a certain extent, no Manchester United manager worth his salt should have their job depending on two results, because you can get lucky or you can unlucky. You know what I mean?
What's happened every time.
Yeah. So
literally that, it's not sustainable.
Yeah. So I think I'll be it's a bit of a strong word, but I think I would be surprised now if he stays. Yeah. And going to the weekend, I thought it was going to be the other way around. Basically, because of what you mentioned, you know, they spent all the money, £200 million, backroom staff. Why do all that if you're going to pull the trigger after 7 games? But I can now see why in the long term.
So you think you're probably leaving this? You feel like?
Well, I'm leaning more towards they're going to pull the trigger. I'd be surprised if they don't now. But you know, I am changing my mind a lot about it because of what happened in the summer. Actually, with not sacking him. I mean, listen, City. That was a great victory in the FA Cup final to beat City. But I didn't think United were absolutely amazing, as a lot of people said. Don't get me wrong, it was an amazing victory, and you did beat them. You definitely deserved it. But, you know, he hit the post, for example, Haaland. I know that happens in football, but it's still a little bit like Ten Hag chaos ball. You know, the winning goal was a breakaway. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a really good move as well. Don't get me wrong. But I'm just sort of saying that kind of saved him then. But it wasn't like we saw a blueprint then and it's been carried on.
Well, what's alarming is as well is when you draw on that, this has positive and negatives, right? Because the positive is going to that 4-4-2 and being compact, etc. Like you say, won us the cup that day. If you look at what we did against Villa, we went to that same shape, 4-4-2, try and hit him on the break, be compact. It's self-preservation. Let's not kid ourselves. He only started playing that 4-4-2 and abandoned his 4-2-3-1 and sort of, you know, how he builds up in play, because we got absolutely destroyed against Crystal Palace. And then the following game was Arsenal. And we all thought, oh my God, we're going to lose 9-0 at Old Trafford. And he went 4-4-2 in that game. When he lost 1-0, I went, tell you what, that wasn't that bad. Then it was Newcastle at home, 4-4-2, compact, beat them. Then Brighton, last game of the season, beat them 4-4-2. So we went with that because, yes, the injuries, this, that, and the other, but we were getting exposed every game. Then as soon as he's gone back to his principles and how he actually wants to play, i.e. this season, what's happened? There's no injuries. We've got more players, better players, upgraded players. We've been absolutely destroyed. Then the self-preservation kicks in of, I cannot die in this game. Help me. Me and KG were sort of saying, it's like Ofsted, Jamie. That game against Villa was Ofsted. You had Ofsted walking in with Barada and Wilcott all lined up. And you say to the kids, you say, listen, they're in today. I tell you what, don't behave yourself. Don't mess up. We need to get through this. That's all it was. That's all it was. We didn't. That game was the lowest in XG, and I'm not even an XG guy. But that was the lowest in XG. It was a poor game of football. As the Villa dropped down to our level, so we can't kid ourselves like that was a good point at Villa. Tough place to go to just beat Bayern Munich. No, that's not even how Ten Hag wants to play. So the same way in the FA Cup final when we won in that manner, which you're alluding to, it's like, yeah, that's not really sustainable. You're not going to be a 4-4-2 side with two number 9s and that's not how you want to play.
Who would you want?
Thomas Tuchel, mate. Get me Thomas Tuchel.
Sorry, yes, yeah.
And you know what, Jay? When we played against Bayern, we was in them press conferences. You know when he came over and Jamal Musiala was in the presser at Old Trafford, and then was you there in Bayern as well?
Yeah.
Andre Onana was in there. Remember? And I remember listening to Thomas Tuchel. I asked him a question, and I just remember listening to him. And at the end of his question, I turned to Josh, and I said, he's bloody good, isn't it? Like. He just has something about him, the way he can control the room, got a bit of aura. He's won titles in different countries. He's won the Champions League. He knows what it is to be at a big club. Yes, of course. After a couple of years, yes, I get it. Some things can happen. But if it's going well, then why not? Yeah, listen, Chelsea have never been there. They probably sacked him too early, let's be honest. That was when it all started crumbling. The only one full season he had. Then they finished third, I think. They did well. You know, so... He's won a title he's won a couple of titles in Liga, got them to a Champions League final. Only managed to do that. And rightly so, won a title. Yeah, and Bayern Munich has been a failing institution for the last couple of years. Loads of changes, board levels changed. They're going around the houses a bit. So look, I just feel like for me, he'll be my leading candidate. I understand why people don't want him. That's fine. Sure. Bring me someone else. So there you go. Listen, Jamie, it's been an absolute pleasure. I don't want to take up any more of your time because I know that phone is probably waiting to go. To finish off, just to kind of have almost like a match prediction, really, but not a Ten Hag prediction. Final words. Do you think out of the international break, Ten Hag will still be Manchester United manager? No, straight up. No, there you go. You've heard it from Jamie Jackson from The Guardian. Check out Jamie on his socials if you haven't already. And of course, make sure you subscribe to The Guardian or read The Guardian to see all of his stuff. Jamie, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. We'll catch up again soon. I'm very, very sure of that. Take care, man. Take care. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.